Here? Yeah, I just want to go over with what we need to, this, Becky, it's good. Yeah.
I actually haven't scheduled us.
No problem. I think we'll be fine if Dan can make it. There's Dan.
Dan's here.
Yeah.
Dan is the
If I
man.
get done there early, I'll come right back.
Okay, sounds good. We're gonna just try to whip this out here. Okay.
I got 35 questions for the commission.
I'm sure you do.
Good afternoon, Senate institutions. It is Thursday, May 10th, and Senate institutions meeting. We just got off a lengthy floor session. The purpose of our meeting today is that we've heard some, I guess,
Really?
yeah, I guess that we have our House counterparts.
We heard some.
Yeah,
We heard some.
We have our House counterparts that have countered back to, with some proposals on what they'd like to do with our bill. And I want to go over that with you guys. We're getting late on time. So it's very, very important that we kind of come to some agreement with that. And Dan, would you like to start with us as far as on some of that?
Sure, we can do that.
We don't really have much to go with here, guys, so just kind of use your heads as far as your memories and all of that, as far as where we're at. We don't have any sheet prepared here because we really didn't get anything from the House. We just got some notes from the House. And, you know, we know the bill well enough to whip through with the changes that we're
I
at.
appreciate looking at the notes.
Yeah, I've got, well, I don't have copies. Actually, I do. One has scribble bump though, so I apologize. So there's more than what is on this sheet. I guess, Dan Dickerson with the Joint Fiscal Office, just to give you some background on what's happening. So you know, because the House possesses the bill, you know, the negotiation sort of begins there as far as what their, at least informally, because it's not on the floor yet, what their further proposal would be. And so as they're sort of hashing out what they want to counter, I put together a summary of where, at least, you know, with their first step of the negotiation, where the money would change. There are some other policy things that I think would be a part of the negotiation that I can try to, Becky, I think, has a draft going. I can try to run through those, but I'll start with the money pieces and where the House is proposing changes. One is they would like to have the money back in the bill in FY24 for the replacement of the Newport courthouse. So that was $750,000 that I believe was in the House bill bonded dollars. I think the governor or the administration had originally proposed cash to pay for that $750,000. And the reason they would like that money back in the bill, without going into yet how they plan to find the money to put it there, is there has money in previous capital bills has gone towards this project. I'll go back to, I believe, the 2020 session, which was the capital budget adjustment for FY 2021. That was the first step in this process. They put 1.5 million of bonded dollars, and I believe the language was to go towards planning, design, and site acquisition. In last biennium, FY 22-23, an additional 1 million was set aside. That language pertains solely to planning and design, and that's going to be another possible change that I'll go into later. So right now, there's roughly 2.5 million that's been set aside. BGS and the commissioner's here, so she can correct me if I misstate something, but BGS is not clear on where, if they were to buy new property, where that property would be. And so what the House Institutions Committee thinks is the more that can be set aside, the better, in the event that property is more than what that 2.5 million, or I guess the combination of property and the planning and design is more than that 2.5 million. If it's not, then in their eyes, it's important to at least have the money sort of segregated for this project that could then be sort of pulled and reconfigured to go towards construction. So their position right now is to have that 750,000 back in the bill. And hopefully that reasoning makes some sense as far as like how I explained it. Obviously your opinions of that can be different from there, but the way that they would come up with that money is to one, remove the additional money that was added to the municipal, the municipal grants. Well, the various grant programs, I'm trying to think of the title of building communities grants. Yeah, they want to go back to their original position only because if those grants were going to increase, then the House would want to increase them all at the same time and not increase a couple and not others. So that's the reasoning on that. So that's 150,000. They wanted to go to the middle on the fish and wildlife funding. So the House position was one place. The Senate added 200,000 to that. They would remove 100,000. So that's another 100,000 negative 250,000. And then on the dams, they've also proposed going back to their position, which was 500,000 instead of $1 million. And their reasoning behind that is a few members of that committee met with an individual, I think it was Ben Green, or his name is Ben Green, from the dam safety program within DEC. He gave sort of an outline of timing wise, what projects would happen this summer, what projects would happen next summer, based on what they have in the queue currently, and based on appropriations that were granted or appropriations that were given in previous capital bill of about 3.4 million, plus the 500,000 they have. The committee feels like that's enough to get them through probably next summer. And in the meantime, there would be another session, next session, where they could determine within the context of the capital budget adjustment whether more money is needed. But that committee right now thinks that what is in their version of this year's capital bill and what was appropriated previously would be enough to get DEC through next summer probably. So that gets to 750,000, which would go back to the Newport courthouse.
What did we do on the Newport? How much did we put in?
Well, they had $500,000 and they had 750. So we had we had 500,000. So we had $500,000 set aside, right, Commissioner? And then my recollection, the reason why we took the 750 away was kind of twofold. One was that we really hadn't identified a site with, and we were being very selective about where that site was going to be, because we know we were negotiating with a property that called the whole that we really didn't want the community doesn't really want the courthouse there. But when talking with the commissioner, I think that she had $500,000 available. The monies that she had available was enough to move forward, and so we pulled the 750 to use it elsewhere. If I remember that right, Commissioner.
Jennifer Fitch, for the record, Jennifer Fitch, BGS Commissioner, thank you very much. So Madam Chair Emmons asked me to come over yesterday and have a conversation, so I did. To date, just so the committee is aware, $2.5 million has been appropriated to this project between 2020, 21, and 22. Right now, we've encumbered around 140,000, which leaves us with a balance of about 2.4 million. So there were a lot of questions yesterday about advancing the project. I remain fairly neutral because until we know what land we're buying, I don't know what the cost of that land will be, and I do have the right to put Mr. Chairman probably know what the name is, but I can put a certain amount of money down to hold the property. There's a technical name for that.
Deposit.
So I can do that, and then I can come back if I don't have enough money, and I can ask for additional money in the biennium. I think there was also recognition by House Institutions and Corrections that, and I'm going to speak for them a little bit, you were in the room. We have a lot of projects that are in design right now, and a lot of them will be hitting construction in the next capital bill. So I think there was also some discussion around, should we start banking some money for these different projects, because we know we can't afford to pay for all of construction within a single biennium. So their decision, not by my request, was to put money back into the capital bill for the Newport courthouse. again, I did not request it. So that was a decision they made. I listened to them, I answered some general questions, and that's the decision they made. So I mean, I think you can look at it both ways, I guess, and that was kind of where I was yesterday.
The only issue right now for me, I could take that dam money, because if in fact we're not prepared to move ahead, and they got all they can handle, that would be a problem for me taking that half million there. Yeah, because I hear that their agenda's full, and they wouldn't do the extra money this year, is that correct?
They definitely would not use it this year, and they very likely would not use it next
So
year.
that's not, so for me, that's a no-brainer. I think that they're going to use, so the $500,000 there, that's something to be, I can take that in a minute. Where else we have to get here? How are we gonna do about the?
Yeah, why don't we go down through, so let me just ask this, without really kind of hashing it all out, and very helpful with that information, without really hashing it out, we know the reasoning for that 750. Okay, let's go down through and let's hear all the other reasonings about where the monies are and where we are, and let's see if we can get to an agreement or within the committee about, let's hear where the other money is. Let's hear each section of it. Let's hear where the money is. Let's hear the reasoning, and let's see. I want to see how you guys feel at the end of the day.
Okay.
So, questions asked and answered as far as the 750 and where it was coming from and all of that.
Yeah.
Is the committee good with that? Okay.
As far as information goes, yeah.
Okay.
There's one piece to this, to the courthouse, I just want to touch on so I don't forget it. As part of that discussion yesterday and looking back at the language from prior capital bills, we realized that the the appropriation that was made in the FY 2021 capital bill of 1.5 million did allow that to be used for land acquisition. The appropriations made in the prior biennium for 22-23 was limited to planning and design. I think that the committee upstairs, and I believe the commissioner was interested in amending that language to ensure that the million that was appropriated over those 2 years could also be used towards land acquisition. So that puts aside 2.5 million that can be used as a combination of land acquisition, planning, or design, as opposed to having it sort of bifurcated and give some flexibility. So that would be something that would be in the House for the proposal, just to clarify or to amend that language from the prior biennium to allow land acquisition to be a part of that use of those funds.
And we are very much in support of that because having the flexibility is vital to our ability to move these projects forward.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, just like. Okay. So you've heard about the courthouse. You've heard about how the courthouse is funded, which is dam safety, 100,000 for Fish and Wildlife, and the building communities. So I will move on to clean water. What is in this document, what the House had initially proposed was going back to their position of pulling the $4 million that would come out of bond dollars for municipal pollution control grants, which had been the mechanism for allowing that money to be available was taking $4 million from the FY 25 clean water appropriation. So that's just so you recall, that's $10 million that's sort of set aside in the capital bill. And you direct the Clean Water Board to make recommendations on how that 10 million would be allocated in the capital budget adjustment. And so this committee had heard from municipalities that the more money that could be available, the better, because a lot of municipalities are ready to move forward in some way, shape, or form, either through bond votes or having projects construction ready. I think the House heard from individuals within the administration that some concern about taking that money away from FY 25 clean water. Obviously the administration proposed another funding mechanism for increasing those municipal pollution control grants, which was one-time general fund. And so I think they maintain that position still, but given that the budget conferees have finished their work, and the 4 million that is coming out of cash to pay for immunity control grants is set and will not be increased within the context of the budget. It really is up to the capital bill if that's going to go up or stay at just the 4 million of cash.
Let me add some comments to this, guys. So I asked Secretary Moore to come in last night, and I met with her a little after 5. And we remember the list of the programs that we had, and we remember all these towns and all that. My simple question to her was, if we go back to the original $4 million in FY24 that we raised to 8, if we went back to that, are you going to have to make phone calls to communities and tell them that they have to rethink their projects because they now don't have the money? And her answer was yes, definitely. We don't know who we're going to call, but we're going to make a lot of phone calls. I said, if we left it alone at FY24 and put it with $8 million, do you have to make any phone calls? And she said, no, we will not have to make any phone calls. We will make that work. And I said, and in FY25, if we have a focus on, as our committee has on that monies, is it going to be problematic if we try to find whether we do it through BAA or another funding source to do that? Is that going to be problematic? She says, what's problematic is we started out with $20 million, 10 million FY24, 10 million FY25. So you have to kind of pick where your problems are. And it's going to make it worse is if we take 4 million from FY24, leaving them with $4 million, and then we got to call these communities and go back and pick and choose on who's going to get the money and how it's going to go. So I think, in my humble opinion to this committee, that it is a no-stop, no-brainer. We will draw the line in the sand that we need $8 million in FY24 with the changes that we made. And that ensures that the communities that have counted on those monies aren't going to get the phone calls to say, hey, we don't know now whether we have that money or not. So that's my opinion on it. We didn't create the problem of taking out of the $20 million. We didn't create that problem. We're trying to make it better, and we're trying to make it better for our communities. We heard testimonies about how important that money was to the community. And really all we're doing, folks, we're not changing any dollars. We're just changing the amount of dollars about where it is. I mean, are we just going to leave it at FY25, or are we going to make sure that we can make sure that in FY24, we don't have to make phone calls to those communities that have already bonded for those and had community involvement and move on? To me, it doesn't make any sense to leave it in 2025 just to sit there when we already know there's a need of it in 2024. We can figure it out in 2025. Now there's talk, and you're going to hear this. There's talk about, well, you know, the feds are awful nervous, and they're this and they're that, and oh my God, yes. Well, yeah, they got nervous when all of a sudden they had $20 million there, and now they only have $14 million here. That's why they're nervous. But for me, I just feel like if we can make a difference with the communities and put $8 million back in FY24, figure out FY25 as it comes to us, that's where my thought process is. But I'll let the committee speak.
Where do we go? We go back with that proposal. What are the other items we're going to get on?
Well, I think I could probably give on the courthouse. I think I could do something like that. I mean, I could do that, but let's hear the rest of it. Let's flesh this out some more.
Okay.
And then let's flesh out what I just talked about. I want to hear the committee's response to that.
So I'd be interested to hear from the secretary whether, and I don't know what the number is, that's what I'm trying to grapple. It can't be 4, but it could be 8. Could it be 6? Could she still be happy if it was 6?
She wants 10. So, I mean, she wanted 10.
Start off with 10, yeah.
She wanted 10, and then, so she thinks she's compromised pretty well at 8.
We're gonna come up with 8 if we have a commitment to this.
Right.
These
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Nice. So what the sheet you have in front of you represents a discussion with the various institutions committee members yesterday. I did speak with the chair of institutions this morning about the media pollution control grants. And so this is just her place right now and not her entire committee's. But as she's tentatively willing to go with the 8 million position, and I think what she said is, I'll go with 8 million, but I would like to have everything else that is in the sheet.
And we'll see about that.
So,
Right.
so that's, I guess, another piece or a clarification or a potential amendment to the sheet you have in front of you is I think they're willing to go with the 8 million, take 4 million away sorry, let me restate this. There's already 4 million set aside in the budget, so she's willing to go with 4 million of bonded dollars for municipal pollution control, which would take away from FY25.
So they're willing to do all that subject right there, what we had proposed.
Okay.
And like I said, that's just her right now. I don't think she had brought that up to her whole committee yet.
Okay.
So that would be 8 in the municipal pollution control.
Yeah,
The 8 total between the 4 million bonded dollars, and then the 4 million of cash.
Basically how we proposed it. It makes sense to everybody?
No, because I'm looking at a comparison sheet from May 2nd, and it shows 10 million on the House side, and it shows 10 million coming from us. And I don't know where we lost the 2 million, even if we're talking about 8 million. I don't know where that money went.
So this, the side-by-side states adds an FY24 appropriation for immediate pollution control of 4 million, and then decreases the FY25 appropriation, the general clean water appropriation from 10 million to 6 million. So that's where the 4 million comes from. So the FY25, what was 10 million in the House bill is now 6 million in the Senate bill.
So what we did was we took that and moved it forward.
Yes.
They don't like that we moved it forward. And now we're saying we want this to be 8. What do we want this to be? 0?
So this would remain what the Senate had originally. So 4 million moving up to 24 for immediate pollution control, and this staying at 6 million.
So FY25, clean water would be 6?
Yeah, which was the Senate position.
Right.
And those two are kind of interrelated.
Right.
Okay.
And
So basically what happened, we started out with 10 million on 24, 10 million on 25. The House took 6 million out of 24 and leaving us with $4 million on 24. We still had the 10 million. We took $4 million from FY25, moved it into 24 to give us 8 million, and the left us with $6 million in FY25.
all right, and she's okay now with the original?
She's okay with that.
Where we were, so 8
She's just-
million in the municipal control grants in FY24.
Yes.
That's what we're saying?
Yes.
One clarification that I think they will add in their further proposal is in the Senate bill, as part of the direction that's given to the Clean Water Board to come back with recommendations on FY25, the Senate had added language asking the board to consider whether the Clean Water Fund could support the municipal pollution control grants in FY25 because there's only going to be 6 million instead of 10. What they, I think, will add, or what they will clarify is for the board to consider whether other funding sources generally can cover the muni pollution control, and that is, I think, in recognition that I think they would want the governor to have some flexibility as far as, could it be Clean Water Fund, could it be one-time general fund again, could it be maybe finding some money in the capital bill, so that it gives some flexibility as opposed to having them look strictly at the Clean Water Fund. So that would be one thing they would clarify, but I think based on discussion with the chair and not the whole committee, tentatively, I think they would be willing to stick with the Senate position on those control grants in 24.
Okay, so as of right now, that's one thing that we can change back.
Yep.
And we'll just, but I want to make sure the committee's clear. All right, any more questions as?
It sounds good. I'm trying to true it up with this, which should be the right thing. Yeah, 425, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Because I have the 8, I'm sorry, the 6 is on the next page.
Yep,
The 6
on
million,
there.
so where's the 4 million? Or is that in a different section?
4 million is right here. FY 24 community pollution
Okay,
control.
okay.
That was not in the House bill at all, and they had 10 million here. So your bill pulls 4 million of that and brings it forward to 24 for those grants.
All right, and so this would become 8.
That would stay at 4. That would
We're
stay
just doing it
your
in a different-
position.
Right, we're doing it in different dollars.
Okay.
We're doing some bonded and some cash.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah, so that's where it
so
is.
4, so this would stay 4 and somewhere else there's 4.
In the big bill, there's 4 of cash.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Okay, everybody clear in their head on that?
The water's clear.
Okay.
Clear water.
Well, good, that's a
Only
good thing.
took $4 million to get it
Okay.
done.
So let's
Okay,
move to the next.
so the final money piece, and this is something that's driven by the budget, the big bill, and how the cash fund is constructed. So if you'll recall, I think you heard testimony at some point once this got clarified over in that committee, what the Senate proposed for the cash, what was currently in law known as the capital expenditure cash fund, is to be renamed, is setting up 3 sub-accounts.
Yeah.
The first of which would be dedicated to capital, it would cover the realm of capital bill projects. The second could also cover capital bill projects, but would also could also be used for transportation. And then the third is sort of this contingent sub-account that, when they're hashing out the budget, they could go, well, we think general fund might be a little bit better. If it is, then it would be transferred here, and we would have these contingent appropriations that would be subject to having those monies available. So 3 sub-accounts. What ended up happening is a lot of the capital projects that I would want to be in sub-account A ended up in sub-account B. And so my goal as part of the conference process, and the reason behind that is in sub-account A, the language for the cash fund states that those appropriations have a timeline of 2 years. So so from the enactment date, there's 2 years to encumber those funds, and that's sort of a control mechanism for making sure that the agencies are getting those funds at least committed, and not sort of sitting on them for an extended period of time. So the goal was to get as many projects into that sub-account A, so that way, you're sort of holding the administration's feet to the fire in that if they do need that money longer, they would need to come in and ask you for that authority. So in doing that, I got as many projects over as I could, but given what the budget conferees were going to put into that sub-account to pay for those appropriations, I was in sort of a pickle as far as what was going to have to remain in sub-account B to make the math work. And what we ended up landing on, and I spoke with the chair of institutions to finalize this, is sub-account B what would be in sub-account B would be the 9.8 million for IIJA match, the 4.5 million for the Waterbury Dam, and then the Vermont State Colleges money, which was 6 million cash. But what would have to change is she said that she, in order to make this work, she would like the 1.5 million that would go to Vermont State Colleges in FY24 to also be moved down to cash. The FY25 would remain in bonded dollars, and that was in the Senate bill. And what would move out of cash and back up to bonded would be the 1.5 million for the Women's Correctional and Reentry Facility. So that's a
Just moving
movement.
dollars around,
it's
doing
just to
things,
make the
making
cash fund
balance, and we did the same thing. We did the same thing here. We moved dollars around when we made our changes. We've done the same. I'm not opposed to any of that. I just want to make sure the committee kind of understands in their brain, how it went and all of that stuff. So we didn't lose any dollars. They just moved them around. They just had to get some balancing act to make it go. To me, it doesn't make a hill of beans to us.
I'm fine with both.
And just so you're aware, I think the budget conference committee is pretty much done, but as far as the total, I think, of the projects authorized in the capital bill, it was about 39,485,000. That's not going to change in what the conference court ends up being. So just so you have peace of mind on that,
There's gonna be some language change.
there will be some language.
There's gonna be some language change on some other stuff. They wanna hold, BGS and speak to the fire on the HVAC system, where we took out the gratuitous language. And, they just can't help themselves. They just absolutely positively can't help themselves. They just wanna have the reporting mechanisms in there, and that's just what they wanna do. And, we can dig our heels in on that right there.
So it just puts us into a little bit of a double jeopardy situation, and this is why. We have no problem reporting out, and I think if there was one report out, that would be reasonable. But if you're gonna ask us to report out once a month over a 3 or 4 month period, the unfortunate part is I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna tell you, nothing has changed since my prior report. That's because unless we reach a milestone in a project, there's really nothing to update you on, meaning status is the current status, nothing has changed. So I have absolutely no problem, and at any time you wanna call me and you wanna ask me where something's at, I'm more than happy to tell you. But what I worry about is now we sit in a chair and every month we come back with the same information for 3 months, and now it looks like we're not doing anything when in reality we are. It's just, we're in a certain phase of a project. So again, I can do it, I don't want it to then give the appearance that BGS isn't moving, because we will be. And I have good news for you, Senator Mazza.
Uh-oh.
Guess what's gonna happen on the Senate side this summer?
A new cafeteria.
You are getting a new air handler unit for the Senate, and we've been coordinating with the Sergeant at Arms and the Pro Tem because
He wants a weekly report.
it's actually great news.
That's not bad.
But who was the commissioner that brought it for you? Right? That's what it's all about, Senator Mazza. So what I would say is, that is amazing news. And we're working really well with the Sergeant of Arms so that we can start that work, even if you guys are coming back for a veto session. It does mean that they may have to move you to other locations if we're disrupting the space, but you will have a new air handler unit by the time you come back for the next session. So that is great news. So that's my only concern. I'm happy to report out. You can call me anytime. I'm an open book. I just don't want it to look like we're not doing anything because you pull me in the next month and it's the same report I gave you in the prior month, and then they stick me in a chair and they grill me on why hasn't anything changed? So that's the only concern that I have.
But the language doesn't imply or necessitate that you have any new information though, right? It
It
just
doesn't,
says,
it's just,
you can
I'm gonna
come in
sit in
and
the
say-
chair and I'm gonna give you the same update I gave you the month before.
That's good, you just copy the last one, just set it up.
And then there is the piece where the only other thing I'll mention, right, is that we know there's some concerns from the legislature on how quickly BGS can move. And one of the reasons you haven't seen myself or Eric Philcorn as often here is because we've been taking that to heart and we've been really focusing on BGS internal operations. And so the more you pull me over here to give you an update that doesn't add much value, it means the less time I'm spending in the department trying to support them and getting projects out the door. So that's the only other thing that I would mention, but we do take everything you say to heart and we do our best and do our due diligence, right, to improve every single day. So again, I don't know that it's something to battle about with the House, if it's something they're really stuck on. I just want to be clear today that if you pull me in every month, I'm probably going to give you the same information. And I don't want anybody to be surprised by that.
do you think the other body would support something like monthly report unless there's no substantial new information?
It's a good compromise potentially.
And this is on the, getting the air conditioning into the,
Well, 2 of them. There's gonna be the air conditioner, there's gonna be the HVAC system into the state house, and it's gonna be the air conditioning systems into the prison system.
yeah, I think
So
that's
two-
what the concern is.
so
is
two
the
different-
prison.
So two different reports, so there's actually,
Well,
so,
there's 3, right? 'Cause
Right,
we're also
well,
doing women's
right.
correctional reentry.
right, so now there's, but we had gotten, so they added 2
Yeah.
more back to them, so that's where it's at.
And,
So-
and the only other point of clarification now that we're here, and this was a hanging chat and I wanted the opportunity to talk, but we didn't have a chance. We're seeking clarification from the House, and I may have brought it here. So with air conditioning for DOC, we don't have a lot of money. So what that means is if you look at the way the language was written, unless it's changed, to be fair, They were looking for both short-term and long-term investments. And what we asked for clarification around was, what is most important to the legislature? Because we can't do both at the same time, especially knowing we have limited funds. So do you want us to focus on smaller, quick wins? Or do you want us to focus on longer-term, air conditioning entire facility versus these isolated spaces? Because we can't do both. And so if we're working on language and that's still written that way, it would be great to know, be given better direction and guidance from the legislature to make sure that we're in alignment. So when I do sit in the chair, and I'm reporting out, everybody's knows what we've been working on based on the guidance that we were given from the legislature. So that would be really helpful if that language is still there about short and long to clarify what is most valuable to the legislature.
So I think immediate relief if it's DOC we're talking about.
Is that what you need now for house?
I think we're getting close. Yes,
So I have a question.
yes.
It just sounds like to me that we agree with every single thing that they propose.
I know. I'm the
So why
same.
can't we come back and say, you can have everything you want, but we don't want the reporting? I feel like we're giving all this back to them with
Yeah.
not asking for anything.
We're giving them the dam
Yeah,
money.
yeah. The only thing that we clawed back is moving the 4 million to make 8 million. And so, yeah, if you guys want to do that, I think that could be a win.
I think one round of reporting is fair. I really do.
Excuse me?
I think one round of reporting is fair, like have us come in the fall, whatever the
What,
date
like
was.
quarterly or something?
Well, no, right now, I think it says starting in September, I have to do once a month all the way through December. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you had me come in once to do something in the fall, whatever date you want, September,
Well, we
October,
don't have
November.
nothing with first, we have to get a meeting together.
Well, I don't, or written report, either way, my point is that I'm happy, I am more than happy, and I think it makes sense to hold us accountable to report out once. All I'm saying is to report out every month.
Yeah, once in 6
Over the
months is
6
fine.
Right, so I'm
Okay.
happy to report out, I don't
So
think there's
let's-
a lot of value in making me do it every single month.
I don't.
Right, well, I thought the monthly made sense in the summer prison stuff.
Well,
That's what I thought was the point.
it also,
Was that was a high priority.
from BGS's perspective, I mean, every single project is a high priority, but I understand the legislature. So part of this is going to be, again, are we talking long-term or short-term, right?
I think it was the short term.
If we're doing
My understanding was the short term.
Short-term,
Summer, just to make sure that something happened,
If we're-
because it was just horrendous, conditions.
so if we're focusing on short-term, then maybe it makes sense, because shorter-term, in theory, there may be more things happening, right? If we're focusing on long-term, I'm gonna come and give you an update, and there's not gonna be much that's gonna change, because longer-term, right? Longer
no, I
designs,
understand.
longer.
Yeah.
So, but I also don't wanna deny the legislature the opportunity to have us give an update either, because I don't wanna give the appearance that we're not open and transparent either, so. I mean, it's up to you, it's just about how much resources do you want us to put into those monthly updates and how much value does it add?
What does the language say? Just
Yeah, I don't have
report?
the bill, I took all this stuff home, I thought we were done.
I haven't, yeah, and I haven't seen the most recent language
We're
in
never
there, so I'm.
done. That's what I've learned.
To me, if you could submit a written
Yes, I can.
report, I'm fine with that. You don't need to come in here, I don't think.
No, I didn't think we were coming back to it.
We have to find that.
It's a written report.
Yeah, okay.
It is a written report.
Can it be a one-line
Okay.
email? I mean,
I want to.
Yeah, it just says on the status of the project, so it's the email that says,
Oh,
here's the status of the project. I mean, it doesn't, I guess I'm saying the language doesn't require certain
Well, whatever you want.
format
What
or
do you want,
information.
Tell us what you want. Yeah, because if you gotta go with something, what do
State
you?
House HVAC, I think is once, because.
What's
that's-
when?
That's a longer term project.
anytime
I think
involved.
DOC, HVAC, whatever is the language now on a monthly basis, I think between the state and the state is fine. And the same thing with women's correctional reentry, I think it's the same thing between this month and this month, it's once a month, is my memory, but I haven't looked at the language in a while.
They were all once between September and January.
So I think that's reasonable on all of them. State House HVAC, kind of depending on how much is moving. State House HVAC, I mean, we give you updates. We work with Janet Miller constantly. I mean, she's in all of our project meetings. I mean, she knows exactly where we're at. Again, if you want me to do it, we can. I don't want to resist anyone. I don't know how much value there is. So,
That's the last thing.
Okay, so hold on a second, because I gotta go back to Al. So corrections, air conditioning reporting stay the
Because
same.
you're looking at short term, I think that makes sense.
Stay the same.
At least I feel that way. You get immediate relief for the people that are in there.
Women's reentry, stay the same. Reentry,
Yeah, that's a longer.
stay the same. But the State House
I
HVAC,
just,
when?
Miller's with us all the time. I think once in the fall makes sense. She's with us. There's not gonna be a lot of change.
So by November 15th,
Sure.
State House,
And hopefully by
Well,
then,
maybe you'll get it done.
your air handler's in by then.
It'll be, we did it, check.
We hope so. Well, this side, we have 3 phases to that project.
okay.
You are phase 1.
Yeah, the last bit of it, I think, Dan, unless we're missing something, because I think we got the language done, I think we've done all that.
So there was language in the House bill requiring, reporting to, oh wait, no, you already touched on that, sorry. There's some racetrack language.
that's what I
think.
that's what I was going-
Becky on that.
That's what I was going back to, I wanted to get to that, so I want to make sure we cleaned up all that stuff. I was just yep,
Sorry, just because you're moving forward. So on Women's Correctional and DOC, when you talk to Madam Chair,
yep,
can you just make sure both committees are in alignment on short-term wins versus, I mean, we're still gonna focus on long-term, but that the primary focus is on short-term, and then on long-term, we just wanna make sure that everybody's in alignment on that.
on the air conditioning part of
On the
it.
HVAC.
Okay,
versus
so,
DOC.
yeah, corrections, stay the same, okay, short term.
Versus long.
Where's their emphasis?
Yeah.
Gotta get these back to take mass historic control cents.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Don't throw it out the window.
okay, so what else? Cause I got one last, I got.
That was all, that I just
Okay.
did before you moved off of women's, or sorry, DOC, HVAC.
Okay, so then I was wondering, because the racetrack stuff doesn't do anything for what we want to do. And I know Becky spent a lot of time on drafting that language and doing that. And I had actually sent Brian an email and wondering if we could get some more language into that that's gonna
Well,
take.
we got something back.
Oh, did we? Okay, you did, okay. So you've already talked to Becky then?
No, this came from Brittany and I guess Alice.
Okay.
Did you see this yet?
I might have drafted it.
What did that come on, an email?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
drafted that.
So that, yeah, 4:50 AM. Morning.
I didn't draft it at 4:15.
No, okay.
You get bonus points if you say you did.
I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning drafting that.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know when it was sent, but
Where
I
do you see
have
that?
seen that. Like,
You've got a copy to you.
Okay, it's email, sorry.
Brittany. At 10:57 this morning.
Okay, sorry, it's been a little bit busy.
And I'm fine with the language.
Does it do, Brian, because you've been the lead guy on that,
I think
does it
it
do what
works.
you want to do?
A grandstand may be constructed or
And it came from
spectator club.
Brittany, so it certainly would be fine at the administration level.
You know, I want everybody to be able to read it.
Do you want to email it to us or what?
Yes,
So they changed it, the House changed it?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they changed it, so it's
We've
nothing.
gone through some gyrations over there. It's okay, it's gonna work out. All right, Brittany, we'll just.
I can explain a little
That'd be great.
change, if you do, it have to be next 3 minutes. but I-
No problem. Go back whenever you're ready. We're gonna send this, okay. Well, I'm gonna send this right now to everybody, right here.
Well, just that,
You did, Brian?
well, I
Okay.
can, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, yeah, you're right there. When are you gonna be able to see it?
I don't know, what do you mean?
Just
I'll
like,
have
just
to
email
look
it.
at somebody's commercial, look at somebody's computer.
Here, right here.
I'm thinking about cannabis, sorry.
So, Becky Wasserman, Legislative Council. So this change, so the version of this language that came over from the Senate, updated the statutory section on safety standards for motor vehicle races by saying that, no grandstand can be constructed or spectators allowed on a curbside of a track unless it meets the same barrier requirements essentially as for the straightaway, and it gave some examples of, overhangs and such. And so this is not changing the intent of that at all, except what it is doing is referring back to the actual rule that has been adopted about the barrier requirements. So it's just trying to make the statute consistent with what those barrier requirements are for the straightaway. So it's saying that a grandstand may be constructed or spectators allowed on a curved side of the track if the barrier requirements for a straightaway that are provided pursuant to the rule that was adopted are met. So it's, I think, better legislative drafting by putting it in the affirmative, and also I'm just referring back to the actual rule that was adopted on this.
Okay.
And then there would be another section that was added, and I'll just note that this was presented as if it would be a floor amendment, but I think it would just come over in the bill and one further proposal amendment.
And it's a study, basically.
Yeah, it's a study. The Office of Professional Regulation is authorized under statute to do what's called a sunset review for the regulatory structures for the professions that they regulate. And so this is, and there's a number of requirements in statute of what that includes. So this would be telling them to do that regulatory review for motor vehicle racing, and that would be looking at what's the state's current regulatory structure, how is the oversight in other states for motor vehicle racing, and measures to ensure adequate public safety, and any recommendations for legislative action.
They'll do that by January of
25. And that works for you?
or two, a year now.
Yeah, if you wanna let Alice know that our committee seems to be okay with it.
And Alice has seen this language? Okay, she agreed with it?
Yes, and OPR is also okay with this one.
Okay, good. Okay, so I think we've got it. Everybody?
Okay. There's one more thing.
Everybody, yep, go ahead.
Okay. I think
Sale
there was,
language changed.
yeah, there was, the sale language.
Oh, yeah, they just moved the date up
to
one.
October, 2024 that, so right now your language says you have 90 days for each of the properties.
Right.
The towns have 90 days to say we intend to submit an offer. And then if they do submit that intent, then they have until June 1st, 2024 to actually submit an offer. And so the House proposal is to extend that time period to submit that actual written offer to October. So it's just giving the town a little bit more time.
And that came from Sean Brown, didn't it?
No, so
No.
this was, I wasn't in committee, but one of my folks told me about it. I think the House is concerned, based on what I heard through the grapevine, about not giving towns enough time or opportunity. So it's the opposite of what the administration would like.
Okay,
And I'm sorry nobody was in committee on the House side, because based on what I heard, I think there's a lot of confusion. So really what we were just looking for a town to do is to say, I am or am not interested, because if there's no interest, why are we holding on to the property, right?
okay.
And we felt that 3 months was a reasonable time frame. It doesn't mean they have to even take a town vote. It just means somebody has to know, and then moving the date out to October, we don't feel like it's reasonable,
No,
because
I don't
town
think
meeting
so
is in
either.
March. And so if you're gonna do a bond vote or any kind of vote with the town on whether or not you want to acquire property, it would happen on town meeting day, which is why we felt that June was a reasonable time frame. Because if there's March, we still give you several months to get to June. So we actually disagree with that language and oppose
And we
it.
will too. I think we worked really, really hard on getting
Yeah,
that
we did.
language right.
We did.
And I think we were really, really fair on that. It's a language change, and I'm gonna stick to that language.
And we had a real estate expert testify.
Yeah, but hold on.
Yeah.
Now we're doing that thing again. So do.
Hold on.
Well, it was a year that we were gonna give the town, and that was if we didn't give them a price. And then we compressed the time period if we gave them a price. So does this include giving them a price? Cause in that
Yeah, it's a-
instance, I agree.
No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that we always had. You got a little confused on that. We always had the same process.
No, we haven't had a I
Yeah,
haven't.
we did
Well,
have the
we're
process.
making a process now.
No, they have the process.
I don't-
BGS has the process. Explain the process.
So we already have letters queued up to go. So upon approval of the capital bill by the governor, we have 3 letters we're gonna send out right to the town of Waterbury, Burlington, and Montpelier. And those letters are going to say, you know, the state has approval and intends to sell this property. Do you have any interest in buying it? And the only thing the town has to do within 3 months is say, yep, or no, either way. Then what that means is if, let's say a town says no, now we know we can move forward with getting the property ready for sale. If the town says yes, now we're gonna give them up to a year from the time we basically issued the letter or the deed that was reflected in the capital bill, which I think was originally June. But through that year process, right, we can have communication back and forth. We know what the value of the property is. We like to try to sell properties at market rate. We've done an assessment on all these properties. It's all FOIA, so I'm happy to give it to the towns to say this is what the buildings have been appraised at, just so they know. And then,
Yeah, they should definitely get
and
it.
then they go, yep, happy to do that. And then they go, they'll do that. Normally, most towns do, you know, vote on town meeting day.
Right.
If they decide they want a bond or they want to get approval from the public to take an action. So they'll have that time periods baked into that timeline. And then at that point, we would assume between town meeting day and June, we would get an offer from a town. Now, we negotiate, we have the ability to negotiate. So let's say I say a property is worth 1 million. And the town comes back and says, well, we can only offer 500,000. Now we have some opportunity to go back and forth because we do have some flexibility, right? And we want to work with our communities and support our town. So even if we were still going through that negotiation process, and let's say it went through June, I'm going to be very open to the community and say, okay, let's negotiate until we both feel comfortable or until one of us says, no, we're not interested anymore, whatever the outcome is. We don't want to move it back to October because the longer we hold on to these properties, the more money we're spending to maintain them, right? And I really need to get these properties ready for sale. There's a lot of different things that I need to do. So holding on to them and not knowing the certainty of what we're gonna do with the property is problematic to the state of Vermont. And by the way, Windsor's a perfect example. We spend, I think about $300,000 a year or so just to hold on to that property, just to keep there are certain components of that property we have to turn on or there's catastrophic building failures that we're gonna have. So there is a cost of just carrying the property.
I totally understand that. I understand this. Okay, first of all, we say that there's a process, but I haven't seen a process. So it would be good to have that written down.
So we don't normally do this. This is the first time in my history. that
Okay,
you have wanted us,
so we don't
my history of the last
normally
6
do
years.
this.
We
Yeah.
have a general sale process. This is different than our
Right.
general sale because most of the time, we just get authorization to sell. And
Right.
we have a process that we go through.
Right, exactly. So selling to the towns is a new process.
It is in my time.
So-
It may have happened before me and I think it
Okay.
has.
That's what I've been saying. So, well, hold on just one second. The other thing is, I'm fine if the towns have the price or a price, giving them a year is plenty. But we've been saying that we have a process and we don't have a process. So it would
Well,
be really
we do
helpful.
have a
No,
process. It's
a new-
nothing exact like what you
It's-
want.
No,
All I'm
we
saying-
haven't
Yes,
had
the
a
process is, Wendy, that we're gonna give them 3 months to say yes or no to whether they want to be a stakeholder.
Okay,
So we're gonna give them 3 months. So they have 3 months.
except
Yes.
Waterbury is different, which makes sense.
Yeah,
We don't, and so we have, these conversations have established a process. That's what I'm saying.
I don't
We
even
are
see why it
getting a
even matters
process
why
now.
you're even to where you're at
Because
with
it
it.
does matter,
It
because
doesn't matter.
it matters to the towns and it matters to the state that the buildings get used appropriately, especially, we want housing, right?
No,
Yeah.
that's not even part of the discussion
could be
about
part
whether
of
they're gonna buy the building or not. That's up to the town to
It-
figure out
alright.
in their brain. It's nothing to do with the sale,
Well,
nothing.
it could.
Nothing, no, that's
It
right, but
could.
they need to figure that out. They don't need, the state doesn't need to be part of that to try to figure out what they wanna use the building for. And I'm not gonna get
Okay.
it, and I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into
I
that,
understand.
I'm not.
I understand you don't wanna get into it, and that's fine. So it's great that we're establishing a process. It would be really good if we write that down and actually have it as a process.
But I'm not gonna tie this bill up
No,
waiting for
you
that.
don't have to
I'm
do
not
that.
gonna do that.
But I would think you have internal procedures, and you probably write them down. It would be good to have this one written down.
We are going through that process now. As I've testified many times, BGS doesn't have a lot of processes written down. That's one of the reasons that I came
Okay,
in.
so this could be a good early one.
So we do, so we just.
When
so-
you write down a process, because everything's different and everything you sell is different, and I'm not going to tie this bill to that, not now.
I'm
I'm not
not
gonna
saying
do
you have
that.
to tie the bill to it.
Well,
I'm
that's-
just saying, we've been saying that we have a process and we don't.
We do
So,
we have a lot of
we're
processes, Wendy. We
developing
just
a
don't have the
process.
exact one that you're looking for, trying to pull out of the air.
We don't.
The process here on this bill, and this is what it's gonna be.
Yeah,
The process on this is that we're gonna sell some buildings, people have 3 months to figure out whether they're a stakeholder or not. And then after that, then they have a year
Yeah.
to try to figure it out.
I think that's good.
Okay, so that's a process.
And I would also assume that during that process, right, and I'm happy to put it in the initial letter, I'm happy to give it at some point, we know the value of these properties. We also have all the facility
Yeah.
condition assessments, we have all of this information on the buildings.
Right.
If I was a town, I would request that information, or we can offer to provide that information when we send our letter. It doesn't matter to me. It's all transparent, it's all open to anyone that they want, and we are always good neighbors and we always partner with all of our communities. If there's a town that's generally interested in buying a property and they say, yep, we want that by the 3 months, they say, yep, we're interested in putting in an offer, then we're happy to continue to collaborate with them. We'll do whatever they want us to do. All we're saying is that we felt like getting through the town meeting day was important because that's the day people go to vote and say,
Sure.
do I support
Sure.
paying additional money for whatever it is, sewer, water, roads, you name it, right?
Right.
This would be on a bond vote, I assume, with the community.
Yeah, but going back to the beginning, it would, obviously, you need to do this as quickly as possible, and you wanna get an answer as quickly as possible. So you providing the information to the town on the condition of the building,
Sure.
the appraisals up front, rather than having you waiting for them to request it from you is great. So that should be in the process. So-
I don't have any issue with doing that. I think it just comes down to, again, resources. If there's a town that clearly doesn't want the building, maybe Burlington doesn't want 108. They
Right,
walk through it, they've
right,
seen it, and they may say, I don't wanna buy 108. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is that there's always resources that go along with all of this stuff that we package up and put together. Happy to do it. But if someone's clearly not interested,
Sure.
then it just doesn't make a lot of sense to then pull all these resources to provide all this information. If
There's a
town isn't
minimal amount of
interested-
information that would be logical for them to have.
Can I just suggest, I see it this way. We've got a 3-month thing where we establish interest on both
Yeah,
parties.
yeah.
If we get too prescriptive after that, we're not giving either side credit. It's kind of like when you go in to buy a car. If you're in the car dealership, you have an interest. The salesman doesn't just sit there and go, well, hope he comes up with an offer. I mean, there's an engagement right away.
Sure.
But it doesn't say within 18 days you have to settle on a price. It allows BGS on the one side and the municipality on the other to take 3 months more if they need to, as long as they're both convinced there's a legitimate, sincere interest on their part to complete the deal. So I'm fine leaving it wide open to both people to figure it out.
And when Waterbury was interested in the subdivision, just to give you an example of collaboration, when the town of Waterbury was interested in a parcel subdivision for the property, right? I met on site with ACCD, with the town and the developer that may be interested in developing the site. And we had a long discussion and we've already provided them with information that they asked for. So we are extremely collaborative. We're very open. You know, we did our due diligence. Does AHS think they need any other, needs this property, yes or no? No, which is why I've been neutral, not to say I'm against it, but I just haven't had a feeling one way or the other as to whether or not the legislature wants to offer this parcel to the town or not. So that's just an example of what I mean. I'm always happy. We've already met with the city of Burlington. We've had some initial discussions with them as well. I haven't talked to the city of Montpelier yet, only because no one has come and talked to me yet, but I'm happy to talk to the city of Montpelier as well. So yes, I understand where you're coming from in that. So to be clear, we do have statutory requirements whenever we sell or buy property. We have to follow those because those are what we like to call monuments, which is a term that means it's something we can't deviate from because it's law.
Yeah, we call them laws.
So we can't deviate from those, and we do have a general process that we use. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and there's sale language in the bill to modify the language, is that we've been adhering to a very antiquated process, which has slowed us down. And that's why we're trying to modernize that language to make it more sophisticated and efficient today, to meet how we do things today. So, yes, and all that came from the fact that we've been trying to establish a more efficient and modern process. And as a result of that, that's what came to the
Good
council.
draft, by the way.
So really, the only thing I was asking for is they moved it to October. I'd love to move it back to June because it gets us past town meeting
And
day.
it sounds like
Fine
Russ
with
is
me.
wanting to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I just need to be clear on this language again, as far as that dates, where we were with the dates. So,
Which dates?
no, on what we just talked about, this
Yeah.
sale. So
Sale. The sale.
tell me the dates on the,
I'll send you an email. Is that
Okay.
helpful?
yeah, because I want to go see Alice
Nice to
before
get the
4
email
o'clock.
too. Send it to me too.
Sure, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I want to go see Alice and I want to, get this thing resolved and say that we're gonna, on the proposed language on the sale dates, for the 3 buildings are gonna stay the same.
And to your point, Senator, right, the town is gonna have to know what they want to purchase the building for, right, before town meeting day. Because otherwise, there's no point going to a bond vote and not having the efficient amount of money.
If we don't know what the bonds
No,
are.
they need to know, and it's like, actually, typically when you buy a car now, they usually look online too.
Yeah.
To see what it's going
Well,
for.
maybe that wasn't a good analogy. If you said to the car guy, the sales guy, you got 72 hours to make this deal, then it just puts too much.
Here's where it's at, you can't have a prescription, when something's fluid on sale, you cannot have such a straight process that you take away from both parties. You can't, because every sale is different.
Right.
And that's what it is. And so your process that you're looking for is to have clear, precise dates that everybody can agree to so they can be involved with the negotiation. That's what it is. That's what sales is. And if you were to try to be prescriptive in sales, believe you me, I've done it for 40 years as far as sales. You can't be so prescriptive to bind people to things that they don't want to be bound to. One is you're not going to get engagement from people because, oh my God, look at those timelines. Son of a gun, I don't know if we can get there. The biggest thing that you have to do is you have to have fair enough dates to get engagement, and then you have to have a long enough period to believe that you can come to an agreement on a deal, on an agreement, without making people that nervous. You just can't. It just doesn't work that way. Not in sales, it doesn't. Not when you're trying to get the most that you can get for a property.
I mean, there are general processes that you go through. I think there should be flexibility, but so far we don't have anything in writing to talk about. So we each have something in our head that is different.
Senator, I can provide you with the recent process that we developed for general sale of buildings. I can provide you with that.
Sure.
This is a slight deviation from that because we're targeting one specific.
Well, and just giving municipalities the option. That was how this all came up, was just when we sell a property, give the municipality, whatever the host municipality is, the option. Because that's a good public policy. Right. So, yeah.
Well, so we got 2 things. We got 3 months and then doesn't have to happen within a year?
And then they have a year. So
Yeah, that's
So
fine. Yeah, no, it
What
sounds
do we want?
good.
Okay,
No,
that's our process.
Yeah, let's write it down.
Well, it is.
No, it isn't.
Well, it's not
Because
written down,
it's-
it's not written
because
down
there's-
as prescriptive. You're not gonna be happy,
No,
Wendy.
I
You're not gonna be
will.
happy until it gets
All
so
right.
prescriptive
You know what?
that it squeezes out.
I can write it for you. I'll write it for you.
I know where I'm
Please.
at. Yeah, we're not gonna agree on it.
You never know.
And we're not gonna agree on it. It's not in the timeline that we have.
No, I agree, but I don't want it in the bill. I
Yes.
just want it
Well,
somewhere.
then we'll deal with
And then we
that.
don't have to talk about it
We
anymore.
can jump on it.
All I'm saying is give peace a chance, man.